Are you brand new to recording content for the first time and you're wanting to build a YouTube channel? Or maybe you've been only live streaming or predominantly live streaming for the last couple of years, and so you kind of gotten out of the swing of things, and so planning, recording, and doing dedicated video content is kind of frustrating. In this particular online course, I'm going to be walking you through all of the steps that you need to take to plan, record, and edit your YouTube videos, especially when it comes to education-based content. My name is Gladney. I am a keynote speaker and author, as well as an online entrepreneur, and I help other entrepreneurs simplify the video creation process. So whether that's understanding the gear side of things or whether it's learning the innate strategies and things like this, both are here on the channel. Now, I've done hundreds, probably close to 1,000 or more videos, and not all of those on YouTube. Some of those have been on Facebook. Some of those have been in our online community or a course, and on and on. However, when it comes to wanting to actually create content for your business and your brand, especially dedicated recorded content, I believe that there's a formula and there's a format, especially one that I've used over the last several years, that honestly has helped me to get 100,000 views on videos, 50,000 views on videos. It's done very well to not only to help the business to grow, but actually reach a wider audience, which is what we all kind of want here on YouTube. So we're going to be breaking this down into those 3 core areas where it comes to the planning phase and the things that you need to do before you actually get ready to sit down and record your videos, how to actually go through and record that process, which honestly, if you follow the planning method that I'm going to be teaching in this series, it'll be very, very easy. Then we'll move over into editing. In this course, I'm going to be using Final Cut Pro 10, but you can use whatever it is that you want. However, the basic strategies, the framework is going to be the same either way. So let's jump into planning. Planning your video content is going to be honestly 90% of the work. The other half is really just about executing on what you've already recorded. You can do way more content when the planning part of it is done well and done efficiently, and I'm going to help you out with this so that you aren't still using post-it notes, even though I love these. I use these a ton, but this is not the best way to do it. Even when it comes to capturing your ideas, I love to use a notebook. Still to this day, a physical notebook just is my dig. However, my other means that I don't really recommend, blank printer paper. We've all done it. However, when it comes to this process that I'm going to be teaching you is one that I've done so many times over that it honestly has worked tremendously well to really grow the channel. But there's something even better that I haven't shared with you before that's going to make this planning phase so much easier. This is my very own planning guide. This guide is going to help you whether you want a printable version or an editable one. Both are available, but this is what we're going to be using so that you have a repeatable, duplicatable process when you're going through and actually creating content. If you want to get access to this and follow along, which I would highly encourage that you do, make sure you go to dyna.link/planning guide, and you can get access to this for free. So the first part of planning is really going to be making sure that we dial in our camera settings right. Now, on your specific planning guide, you will see that we have a creator checklist available. Now, that's available so that you can always remember what it is that you're using. Doesn't matter if you're starting with a webcam, your smartphone, or if you're actually going to use a dedicated camera. In this particular course, we're going to be using the Sony ZV-E10 to record our video content and actually record, edit, and publish a YouTube video. So this camera has 4K capabilities, a lot of other stuff. We've covered it tremendously on the channel, and this will be very, very helpful. The thing I love most about it is the fact that you have a flip out screen so you can see yourself. You have a microphone input and a headphone input and clean HDMI out. Now, what all that stuff means, if you're not familiar, is basically it's going to make recording as a solo content creator that much easier. All right, so let's talk about some of the best settings that you can actually use for your camera. I think honestly, if you are really doing short form videos, and we'll talk about what kind of content groupings or how long a video should be in just a second. But when it comes to the actual settings, I honestly think record in 4K. If you have a camera that's capable of doing it, especially most modern smartphones can do it, go ahead and start recording your video content in 4K. Now, whether you use 24, 30, or 60 frames per second, It's honestly a personal preference. I've experimented with all of them, but I've kind of settled on 24 frames per second, especially when you're working with more entry-level cameras that need as much light to the sensor so it can see as well. It's kind of like having a fist over your hand, and the more you open that up, it can see a little bit better. It's a very, very easy way of explaining everything camera settings wise. A quick cheat sheet setting version of this guide that you can use is 24 frames per second. Make sure you set your shutter speed to 1/50th of a second. If you're going to be using 30 frames per second, make sure you set the shutter speed to 1/60th of a second. I don't want to go into making this a whole lot about what camera settings and the like, but it is important in making sure that, one, you can be seen very clearly, and number two, that your videos don't come out weird. Sometimes when people are new to recording with the camera, don't wait till a regular video to try to figure this out. Do test recordings ahead of time. But once you find those good, right settings to use, make sure you go ahead and use the planning guide to say, like, okay, we use this setting here on the video, so we can mark that. So we can actually mark that we're using 24. We use 1/50th for the shutter speed. Now there's a section on this guide that says the aperture or the f-stop, and this is really going to matter when it comes to what lens that you're going to be using. Now I'm using the Sigma 16 on this particular shot, which is what I usually use for most of my videos. And because that can go at f1.4, it'll make sure that I can get the brightest image possible, as well as getting a blurry background. So I'll note what that is specifically, just so if I ever wanted to repeat this specific look, I don't have to guess at how I actually got that look. So take a note of what the aperture is. If you're using something like the kit lens, go ahead and set that to an f3.5, so it's as low as the lens can go. Now we have the ISO as well as the white balance, and you'll see that it's measured in kelvins because that's how light temperature is measured. Again, without going through exhaustive content, I'll put additional resources down in the description, but take a note of what that's set to. So in this particular environment, we're using 4400 for our white balance, and we're using a ISO of 200 for this particular shot. So you can go ahead and note that in the guide. Now the next part of planning is your pre-record day checklist. Now this is stuff that you should do before it's actually the day that you plan to record. And so we have a list of things and items on this particular sheet, from formatting your memory card, set the white balance, silence devices, or if you have the focus modes, that's really great on your phones or something like your Apple Watch. That way you don't have to go search or hunting for anything, or make sure that it's on. And the last two are the most important two, and that's going to be checking your audio as well as making sure that you charge your batteries. Cannot express how deeply disappointing it is to record your videos right, say all the things the way that you want to, but then you see that the audio was way past the point that it's recoverable, or you see that the camera actually cut off in the middle of you talking. Not very helpful and not encouraging, and it actually kind of deflates the energy that you have in that particular video. So these are just a few basic things that you want to add to your actual list. So like I said, the charging your batteries and the audio, and I mean literally charge everything. Do this stuff, as well as consider what are some other things to take note of for your home. Maybe it's making sure that your kids are squared away, or making sure that your family knows don't interrupt you because you're planning to record. So making sure that this stuff is done way before you need to record is absolutely helpful. And I'll add one additional pro tip in there, which is for however you plan to set this up or wherever you plan to record, maybe use some gaffer's tape and mark off those specific spots when you plan to record. I call this my record to edit process. So anytime I want to duplicate a particular shot, I don't need to rethink or reinvent the wheel or try to refigure out where was the best place that I had the tripod the last time, or where was the best place that I had the lights the last time. Especially when you have a family, this is going to be critical to making sure that you can keep coming back to the same spot, have duplicatable settings so that it's not always frustrating. And another pro area that you'll see on this particular checklist is that there's a picture area for you, not so that you can take a picture of the shot, but take a picture of your camera settings of the screen. So that way, no matter what, you can always come back to what that setting actually looked like on your camera so that it's duplicatable for the future. Next up is our content quadrant. Now, I've developed these 4 areas just to break down and make it easy that when you're planning out a video, we all have limited time in the day, and sometimes that means that you can't do the video ideas that you thought that you would, not necessarily because it's too complex, but because you literally don't have the time. But think of your time like containers, literal buckets. The reason why is because if you have a small bucket of time, or you have a small container of time, That means you cannot do your big 50, 20-minute training video ideas in that time frame. But that doesn't mean you can't do anything. So let's take a look at these 4 key areas of the content quadrant. The first area is going to be the quick hitter, the 60 to 90 second videos. Now the quick hitters are videos that you literally could do every single day. So if you want to get more practice with your camera, or if you literally just want to produce more content, think about this content quadrant, especially the quick hitters, as different segments of time that you can leverage. So quick hitters, you can do Instagram stories, YouTube shorts, Instagram videos, or the like. This doesn't mean that the video is only 60 to 90 seconds, but this is usually the time frame. And you don't want to record 2 to 3 minutes worth of content and then condense that down to 60 to 90 seconds. It should literally only be about 60 to 90 seconds to begin with. So whatever you edit down, it maybe will be a little bit less. Light planners. These are your 2 to 4 minute videos. Now, your recording time, you can probably double up on any of these time segments, just because sometimes it is going to take you a couple takes to get it right. Not necessarily right, but in the way that you want to say it. So really consider that when you're going through. But light planners honestly could be what the bulk of the videos that you record are, because it may take you 7 minutes to record it, but once it's edited down, maybe it's only 2 to 4 minutes. Medium planners. These 3 to 7 minute videos are extremely powerful when it comes to creating video content. Now, I want you to think about this. These honestly would be something like 20-minute segments. So these are now starting to get into longer form content. And you may say, well, 2 to 7 minutes isn't that long, but how long did it take you to record the video? So if you're planning to do a medium planner video, make sure that it's not going to take you all day long to get there. But you never know, depending if you're kind of feeling on or off. It could be a day that honestly, it just takes you a little bit longer to record. So make some extra time to do that. Now, hard hitters are a unique style category. Again, we're talking about education-based content predominantly. Not that nothing else would fit here, but it's just what I'm used to and what I teach and who I teach. So 3 to 12 minutes. So why the 3-minute time frame? Again, just because it's going to be shorter in length does not mean that it can't be dense. And the thing you need to consider when you're getting into content around your business and for your brand, you may be covering a how-to, or you may be showing a behind the scenes video, but that means it may take you longer to do research. It may take you longer to wait and actually record to get that B-roll footage if, let's say, you're going on a trip or something of the like. So the more complex the video, it's not just based on the time frame. It's really going to be based on how much actual additional work is going to be needed when it comes to recording, the planning, the research, and all the like. So we finally made it to the main area of the actual worksheet. And here's the thing, this top area is honestly going to take more work than what it is, because you actually need to do the research. Now, we talk more about YouTube research and things like that in our Video Simplified community. So if you want to join a community to actually learn how to do that in our YouTube Simplified course, make sure you click on the link down in the description. It'll be a lot of links in the description apparently throughout this, but if you want to join the community, that's where you're going to find it. Go to videosimplified.live. So there's a couple ways I want you to think about how you'll work out the title. The reason why you just have video, the working title, and then the final title is because there's kind of like stages of what's the point of the video. Now, you will need to do the research ahead of you getting ready to record, but by the time you get here, you've already probably done some of the research, or you at least have that video idea in mind. So the video line is literally just so you can write what's the point or what's the general idea of the video. When you have the working title, it's when you're starting to get through the process of what are we going to call this essentially. The final title is what you'll actually use when it comes to publishing that dedicated video on YouTube. Let's talk about your hook for a second. The hook is going to be the first 3 to 8 seconds, maybe a little bit more of your dedicated video. And most people burn this time like nobody's business. This is going to make people decide if they want to skip and see if you get to the point, or if they just want to leave because they don't trust that you will, because you're just running on and on and on and on. So the video hook is going to be extremely important, and it's really important that you craft this out. Now, I talk about this and I have taught on this a lot about speaking to the elephant in the room. It's just something that I honestly love to do, because we cannot allude to some kind of elusive idea, or like, no, people know what they're looking for already. They are looking at thumbnails, they're looking at titles, they're looking at how long the video is to see, do I want to spend and invest this much time in a video, and is it going to give me what I want? So when they enter in that video, don't tell them like, oh, stick to the end and later I'll tell you. it's fine if you do have that, but trying to draw it out and make sure they stay is not always going to work. So you need to make sure that in that video hook, you're explaining and expressing why you understand their problem, their pain point, you know the who that person is, that target audience that you're trying to reach, and that you're going to cover a certain or specific amount of things. The video title and the thumbnail has already done that. Really take that into consideration. Our audience is not stupid, so don't treat them stupid in the hook part of the video. So if you have a 30-second hook, that may be too long unless it's really something exhaustive, but somewhere about that 10 to 12 second mark, I like to start getting to the point of the video unless there's a reason I need to draw that out longer. So really take time and craft a competent hook. Now, as we move down into this video planning guide, you'll see that there's really only 3 core tips. Now, this is baked around doing somewhere between a light planner and a medium planner video so that when you're done with the edited version, it's somewhere between that time frame. Now, the video we're going to actually record is going to wind up being a medium planner, but that's honestly just because of the type of content, but it could fit into a light planner category. But just because of the amount of work, maybe the amount of time that it would take to record the B-roll, that's the kind of stuff that you have to think about when you're going into a medium planner. It's going to take a little bit longer. A light planner, you can record, edit, and upload that in the same day, but it's the more efficient that you're going to be in the planning process that will make you pull that off faster or slower. So the reason I only use 3 tips for most of the videos, and then if it's like something longer, it may be 7, 15, or the like, is depending on what's the point of the video. We don't need to make videos super long. They literally only need to be as long as it takes to get to the point. Anything longer than that, see if maybe that makes sense to make a whole other video about. So when you sit down to record a video, if you don't do any level of planning and just say, well, I know my content, chances are you're going to record way more content than you actually need to. Pro tips. I love sharing pro tips in videos because it's something that's a little bit more. So it doesn't necessarily take it from 3 to 4 tips, but it makes sure that you can have that extra idea, or if there's something additional that the viewer needs to know outside of those 3 things. So I love to add in pro tips where applicable. So there is a section for that, but just kind of know after you get through tip number 1 and tip number 2, is there something extra that maybe you could tell them or share it with the viewer that maybe nobody else on YouTube that's covering that topic has done just yet. So the last part of this is honestly something that you could do, not necessarily on your recording day, but on another day where maybe you only have like 20 or 30 minutes, but not enough time to really record or edit any of your videos on your ideas. Make sure you record your own natural B-roll. Now, I say natural B-roll because that's stuff that you're going to record or footage that you have, but you can use places like Storyblocks if you want to get access to other stuff. I like websites also like Pexels or Unsplash if you need photo-based content as well. So those are great resources. And Storyblocks honestly has a lot of footage. It just is honestly, does it make sense for you to record that thing, or does it make sense to honestly go grab B-roll? So stuff like drone shots, if you don't have a drone, obviously, Storyblocks would be great. But if you do have something like a particular phone, don't just only do the lazy method. The lazy method is just like, yeah, so yeah, this thing right here. And then like, I don't know. So if you want to do like, stop, go ahead, take your camera off the tripod or even your phone, whatever your camera source is, set it down, make it look nice, and record some B-roll. Doesn't have to be the best B-roll from Peter McKinnon, and then calm down. Just make simple shots and keep it simple. So the things that you would need for B-roll is, what are you going to talk about? Are you going to do anything that needs to be shown on the screen? And the way that you can identify this is using the say, show, and spell method. That is when I'm saying something like, today I'm going to teach you about the Sony ZV-E10. At that particular point in the video, there would be B-roll that comes on screen to show you this particular camera. And maybe somewhere in there, there's a lower third that comes on screen that actually shows the name, especially if I'm like, this is a Sennheiser MKB, that needs to be on a lower third because maybe you say it wrong, which happens. And it's not always worth completely re-recording the video, or maybe it's an honest miss. That's fine. Just add the lower third or put an asterisk with the correct spelling or something and then move on. But it may be something that you can actually show on the product or device or a website page or the like. So when I'm thinking about a video idea, we'll use Dropbox or something of the like so that you can already put the B-roll stuff aside, because as I'm working on something, I may say this would be a really cool video idea. I'll go ahead and create that folder with the name or that working title of the YouTube video, put that in a folder, and I have an A-roll and a B-roll folder. From there, any of the screen records, B-roll clips, and things that are needed for that idea will be there. So we may be sitting on an idea for anywhere from like 2 to 3 months, sometimes longer, just because I'm waiting for a trip to come up to get the rest of the footage, or it's a future idea, but nothing that I need to move on right now, but we already have the B-roll well in advance. The better you have your videos planned out, the better that you can record them, and the better that you record your videos, the easier it is when you take your videos into editing. Now, I teach a 4-block framework when it comes to how to actually record your videos. For the most part, you can see this exemplified here on the document. However, make sure that you're not always stopping and starting the video clip unless you maybe need to. So everything is always in one file. But what you will notice is major sections of the video where you did the intro, where you had the hook, where you did the tip, where the pro tip is, and the like. Because you may be referring back to your notes, whether that's on your phone or you print it out and you want a printable version, but either way, it's a great way to do that. So let's go ahead and record a dedicated video idea that we have actually planned out. And I honestly, at the time, I didn't have it printed out. So I did what I always do. I wrote it down, but it's literally in the exact same format. And I use this when I'm going through, especially doing tutorial-based content. In this particular idea, I was talking about how to actually save your videos from Ecamm to an SSD drive so it doesn't fill up your camera and stuff. Well, in that way, I wanted to go through and decide on what was going to be the hook, plan out those tip 1, 2, 3s and the like, and record that video. So once you have everything recorded, you don't have to stress out about anything else, but you can take that footage over into editing. So let's go ahead and prepare ourselves for the edit. Alright, so this is how to save long recordings to an SSD external hard drive in Ecamm Live. Have you ever been mid-live stream and you get this pop-up message that says something like, your folder has been full, or you need to start clearing some of your stuff? So here we are in Final Cut Pro 10. I'm going to be going through some basic explanations of how this system works. This is not a full exhaustive Final Cut Pro tutorial. I mean, I'm going to be showing you the elements of editing the video, but because this video will be a bit longer than I ideally would like for this training to be different if it was a 2 or 3 minute video. But this one is a bit longer just for some of the different concepts that we're covering in this recorded video concept. I don't want to go through and do a 10-minute edit here because that will take a little bit of time. But the different options and sections of Final Cut Pro 10 here is that you have this section here, which is where your library and your events will be, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then you have here where you'll select your different files, so your B-roll, your music, the different parts that you're adding to your project or your edit. Here is where you will have where you import and where you're watching the videos that you're actually editing. Here you have the inspector window if you want to change the position of the video or just punch in and zoom in. Sometimes that's where you're going to do there. Adjust the audio, color grading, that kind of stuff is over here in what's called the inspector window. Down here is where you have your normal timeline. Is where you would put things, where you'll see your editing file that you're actually literally editing the video, and then your music. And then over here, you have transitions, different things that'll come up on the side panel, or it could be your audio files, things like that. That's coming up there if you click on different things, as we'll go through in this video. So to understand the difference between a library, an event, And then a project is to think of it literally kind of like a book. And so you literally have the library where you have a ton of books can live, or a ton of video projects overall, or concepts can live. Then an individual book. I like to do this based on the month, based on the particular thing that I'm doing, or maybe a series of videos. Then the overall project is the name of the video. And that's the basic structuring here. So instead of opening a new library that I already have, I'll go to File and create a new library. So I already have your SSD connected. And so I would probably, let's say, go over here to the one that we use. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to select anything specific. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this, I'm just going to put 22 in the front so I know to go through and get rid of this later. And we'll call this, let's call this the May video library. So anything that we edit maybe over the course of May could be like 4 videos. If you're doing 1 video per week, those videos, those assets, and all those things can be located here in this specific library. And so I'm going to save that. So any specific things that are library related will go here. And then I'll click save, and I'm not going to save it to the computer. I'm saving it to the SSD. And then I'm going to click save here. Any project files, assets, any of that stuff, it's going to go there. It says untitled for the overall library, but you would need to name that, or you can rename that just kind of by clicking on it for that. And I'm just going to click on 22 May, call this 2022 or something like that. Or we can call this May video library, just kind of match the folder. So now it automatically creates this Smart Collections folder. Again, it's not a full thorough understanding of Final Cut Pro. We have other videos that breaks down other concepts more in depth, but this will cover the overall specifics for this one. Now it creates them May 4th, 2022. I'm okay with this event, which is where multiple video files or projects may be. So maybe you have anything that you're going to edit in week 1 of the week. I date it based on that, or you can call it first week and rename that to the first week. So if we just click on this, we can get that to allow us to, get the name changed there, and we can call this week 1 of May. So we can go through and maybe create a couple other events. Think of those like chapters of a book. And so then what we now need to do is right click on here and create a new project, or you can hit Command and the letter N to do so. I just like to use the mouse. It's just easier. And so now this project is what the video edit is going to be called. So I may just call this one exactly what the video is, which according to my document helps keep things easy, which is how to save long recordings to an SSD for Ecamm. Now here is where you'll save it to like 1080p or 4K timeline, whatever it is that you're editing from. It is a 4K video, and you can select that. And you'll have a couple different options for the resolution. Mine is a 38 by 40 by 2160, 3840 by 2160. Here, you'll select the frame rate to match whatever it is that the video is. For me, it's 23.98 since I'm recording 24p. It's not truly 24, so I'm not going to select that. I don't think it'll make much of a difference, but I just usually match it exactly. And then rendering is ProRes 422. Everything else I remain the same to 48 kilohertz. I never change that stuff. But if you want to make it 1080p or vertical video, that's where you can do that for that specific edit. Or if you prefer 1080p, then you can leave that there. And then you hit OK. Now you have the makings of what it takes to get started with the video. If you ever need to change the name, or you accidentally select something incorrect and you now want to change it, or you're like, oh, it's 1080p, it should be 4K. Come over here to the modify in the inspector after you click on the project over here. And then you can go through and change the resolution, or change if you want it to be something else other than 1080p and stuff like that. If this was a more exhaustive video, if this was a bigger edit instead of this individual video, then I would take and go through it and do it more organized. But usually if I'm just doing a very simple edit, I'll drag and drop. There's a different way that you can go through an organized folder, so it's a bit better. But I'm not trying to do that. I just like to keep things very clean and straightforward. So that it's not exhausting trying to dig through folder structures and everything be super organized just for you to delete it at the end. So depending on the kind of person that you are, you can choose whichever you prefer. The next thing we want to do is pick our videos. You can come up here and import media by coming to this section. It'll open up a different position. You can go through and scroll. This is stuff from my other SD card for when I'm doing vlog clips, other B-roll, and I can see all of that stuff. I personally don't prefer that. It's different reasons why I may want to go that route. For something like this, I honestly would just want to pull up a Finder window, come through, and I already have the folder selected, but I would come through, find my SD card, and then what I can do is select the first video in that clip and the last one and hit shift or press shift and then click all it, and I'll select all of those. Then I'm just going to drag and drop all that stuff over there because I need all the files. So there's nothing that I want to use to be more customized. I don't want to use any kind of proxy files, which is condensing them and squeezing them down. I don't need to do any of that for these videos. It's a very simple edit, so I don't need to go into all of that. So literally you can drag and drop anything to the timeline. I could have dragged all those videos down here and all those videos would be on the timeline if you want to, but I don't want to right now. What I want to do is just bring this main video file down here that I need. So what we can see now here, once we've done that, and again, we're going to break this down into showing you the editing concepts and how you would do them with a simple one-time example. Then I'm going to go through, finish editing the video, and then I'll bring you back on so that you can see everything that I've added post editing. And so when we add this video, and I think I did need, nope, I only had the one video file. Cool. Okay, so I have this one long video file. This is all of the raw assets. Now, if you look at the specific parts here for the audio, you see like big bars when I'm talking, and then little bars of me just moving around doing nothing. But you see those main sections from the intro to the main core content here. If we just kind of make some big cuts, and I'm just going to go through keyboard shortcuts here, I'll call them out, but there's a dedicated video on the channel that goes into all of this. So to do this, hit Command and B to cut that there. So that's be mostly the intro section there. And then here, before I'm getting to the main parts, but this is usually the main content of the video, just from me knowing how I recorded it. So this more or less is core content here. And then we have here, which is going to be somewhere in that. It's going exactly the way we have it in the video planning guide. This is more or less going to be the pro tip. This is going to be wrapping things up. And then down here, we have our call to action. And we have our NLQ for the next logical question that we're going to be bringing up on the screen. And so this is overall like a 16-17 minute video. That's way too long. And what we can do is go through and do rough cuts and edits for this particular piece. And what I mean by rough cuts is go through, take all of these big gaps out, parts where I made a mistake that was a big chunk that I want to get rid of. So for example, I can see here, I'm getting up, I had to go get something that I forgot to, that wasn't on the table. So if I use Command and the plus symbol, or Command and minus if you want to shrink things down, but Command and the plus symbol, hold Command down, then I know I can get rid of all of that. I like to use the bracket to cut off all of this part instead of dragging this to get rid of it, because that's a little slow. Use the keyboard shortcuts according to the way I use them. Hit the bracket to the left bracket, and you can get rid of all of that stuff, anything to the left of where your cursor was. And so what I will do is go to the very end of me saying something. The ending of a take will tell me if I wanted to keep it or not, because sometimes I'll get through something and be like, that was okay. I think I can say that better, because I had an idea in the midst of saying it. And I'm like, yeah, I think I can make that better. I can say that better than what I initially intended to say. And so I'll listen just to the end segments here. And it really makes a difference on which one you use. Okay, so I know I want to keep that clip. So that's cool. I'm just going to hit Command and B to cut right there. I know this gap doesn't have any reason to exist, so I'm gonna hit the left bracket there, get rid of that. All of this here, I'm gonna get rid of that with the right back bracket since it's to the right. And then I can go through and just get rid of a bunch of stuff that I know I don't need. And this is going to be your initial rough cut. And again, the rough cut is just to get rid of that. I don't have to listen to the beginning. I just need to listen to the end. Ecamm live. Okay, see here. Have you ever been mid? In today's video, I'm going to be diving. Okay, so that's just the title. So I can do left bracket, get rid of that. This to the end. Use this as a regular recorded video. Yep, see, I already told myself I don't like it. So get rid of it. So I'm going to hit Command and B. Listen to the front part real quick. And this sucks, especially. All right, so let's see what I want to do here. In today's video, I'm actually going to be walking you through the two things. Okay, so all of this here, again, I'm just listening to the ends, right at the beginnings, get rid of it. Okay, so this whole section here, just listening to how I can piece this together. Any kind of upward inflections, just pro tip here, upward inflections like, and I don't know about that, like upward inflection, it sounds like something else is coming behind it, like I didn't finish saying what I was thinking. Where it's like, yeah, and I don't know about that. A downward inflection in your voice sounds like a period. It's a finished and finalized statement. So that's what I'm listening for when I'm making those specific audible cuts during the rough cut. So I'm just listening for how I said something, because sometimes, even though I may be still saying something else, once I've seen that I've gotten to the point, I'm cutting the rest of that out. If it makes sense to go from one section to the next, fine, then I want to keep that there. So let's go here, and in a second, I'll come back and show you. We'll go into all these different sections, but that's what I want to do specifically for the rough cut, so I can go through and condense this video down from exactly what it is now to like 15 minutes to something that's like way shorter time-wise. Now you can see that what I've done is I've condensed this down, cutting out all of those different gaps, and you can see that we've taken it from like a 15-minute video file down to a 10-minute video file, and we still haven't made any final revisions and cuts and things like that. We just literally did the rough cut. Now, when I come here to the beginning of the video, and I now get into here, some of the things that we can do is start to pay attention to transitions. That's one of the next elements that you can start to dive into when you're going through your video as you're transitioning from different sections, or you want to add in a transition or something different. So from this main clip here to this next main clip, sometimes a transition is the one that you really don't see or notice. And I will do that by increasing the size of the video so that I can make sure that it punches in a bit. So you select a video clip here just by literally clicking on it. In your inspector window, you want to make sure that you're having that timeline clicked. On this scale section here, this transform overall area. So if you have that condensed down and you can't see it, you just want to click show so that you can see all of that. The scale all here, not the scale X or Y or anything like that. The X and Y position here will bring your video up or down. We don't want to mess with any of that stuff yet. And so what you do want to do is scale all, and that will allow you to punch in. I like to go from like 110, 120%, 140%, something like that. So let's go with 120%. You can type the numbers in, or you can drag them kind of like up or down if you want, or you can increase the slider and adjust that as well. But I'm going to go with 120 and hit enter. So now that we've increased that to 120%, you can see as we go from that first clip to the next portion here that the transition goes. However, if you pay attention, I'm just going to put my mouse right here so that you can see it. I'll put it outside of where I'm at, so that as I hit play on the keyboard, I'm gonna put my mouse up here, and I want you to notice this is my eye line starting here as we go from one clip to the next. Like Ecamm Live, and this sucks. Now, if you notice, now my eye line is slightly up here. Those micro adjustments as you're going when you're doing what's called a little bit of a jump cut, but not quite. It's a little bit of a better jump cut, a smoother cut when you're transitioning from one section to the next to make it look like multiple camera angles or like you're using multiple cameras. To do that, I do want to make sure that as I'm jumping from one spot to the next, if my audience has to start looking from down here to now their eyes are jumping up here, that is a weird transition. They don't know why they don't like it, or it feels weird to them or jarring, but they do psychologically notice the difference or subconsciously notice the difference. And so what I'll do is, yes, I may increase the size, but pro tip here, I don't only do that. And I want to bring this down on the y-axis or up and down to, let's say, about a negative 52%. So if I'm going from one section to the next, I just want to make sure my eye line is relatively in the same spot. Something like Ecamm Live. And this sucks. And so it's pretty much in the same spot. I could probably even afford to bring that up a little more. And so again, I could put my marker there, go from here. Something like Ecamm Live. And this sucks. So the eye line stays about roughly here. So I'm never losing eye contact or making somebody jump from one side to the left or to the next or up and down. It just feels weird when you're going through and you're doing that. Now, to make this a bit easier, what you can do is you can usually go online and find any kind of rule of thirds images and bring that in as a transparent background or like an overlay and drag that in. So when you're going from one section to the next, then you have something on the screen to show like, where is my eye line when I'm on this specific section here, where I can see that I'm right here at the top line. And then when I go in to the next one, even though I'm tilting my head or leaning forwards and backwards, you can see again, just for where my normal resting station would be if I'm not moving or speaking more animated, is right there on the line. So if you're using something like that, that can help. And then you can get rid of that file so you don't need that overlay on your thing. I'll include a link in the description where you can get some assets to locate something like that so you can get the rule of thirds. Now, if you're going through, you do want to make sure that what I'll do if I know I'm doing a bunch of these cuts, there's a quick way that I can copy and paste that if I want to go from one section to the next. So let's say, let's see here, I know it's a mistake. Okay, just redo that. Alrighty, so... Have you ever been mid live streaming? Okay. But we're going to be diving into that and a couple pro tips to help you along the way. Just some additional hiccups after. So I don't know where I want to cut that at just yet listening to it, but I do know I want to take this part out. So let's say about here, let's go, all right, 120 here. Let's say we decrease that back again to 100% and put that at 0. So now we have it where it's normal, it increases, it goes back to normal, and then it's increased already. But let's say this one was still back at 100%. Let's put everything at 0 or back at where it's at. Now, this one is increased. What I'm gonna do is hit Command and C, select it where I want it to go, hit Shift, Command, and the letter V. Now, any of the assets that I want from the position, rotation, scale, the volume, any changes that you've usually made, you can copy and paste it to one clip, but I do want to remove the volume because I don't want to increase it more and more again, and just hit paste. So now as I'm going from one specific portion to the next, and I can always do that. So I don't have to worry about remembering exactly the dimensions that I put it to. I just like to copy and paste when I know I want to go through and get it, and then just grab it from a portion that I've already done that at. Just something like a quick way to kind of help speed things along. So as we're moving into how we want to do additional transitions, let's move into some other parts of the video, just where I know I may want to make some additional cuts or transitions at. Moving from one section to the next. All right, so let's say I wanted, this is why you do the smile and hold. If you want to see a video on that, you check out the description or the link up above. But the reason why is it's going to give me space at the beginning and the end of every clip. So when I want to go in and add a transition, let's go to transitions. I like to use a lot of different ones that I'll collect, that whether it's other creators that are giving them away, or ones that I invest in and I purchase. And so I'll have all of those over here. And to add transitions that you want to use, you want to hit this sideways looking, it could be like an infinity symbol, could be like an hourglass, depending on how you look at it. But that icon there. And then I'll go through and I'll use this slide left. I like this one a lot. Now I can drag this over here, or you can usually double click on that transition. And if you just scroll over it, you can see what that transition will do and how it'll work on your clip. So if I just drag and drop it normally and take a look here and just hit play to the place before. So when you open Ecamm, so if you notice really low, you hear the audio from the previous clip kind of feed in there. So when you open, so when you hear that, like, I don't want to use that. So what I would like to do is I'm going to hit Command plus. I'm going to drag this over. And so, no, I want to do that. I want to drag to the right. So there's a couple different edits that you'll do in the transition. The first thing is, like, you can add it like click on it and hold, and you'll drag and you'll be chopping off those other bits of the clip. And then the other portion is you can resize it as you're making the transition longer or making the transition shorter. What I want to do is come and slide it over so it's taking more of that excess talking and all that stuff out of the way. And so it's a cleaner transition. The place before. When you open eCount, you want to go. So that's pretty good. To the place before. When you open eCount, you want to go. Yeah, so the pacing on that's actually a nice transition right there. We don't need to do anything extra with that. And if you want to add a sound effect underneath, you just find the sound effect that you want to use, drag that underneath here so that it makes sense. I don't want to in this specific bit, but if we're just listening to the video, stop saving it to the place before. When you open eCount, you want to go to the gear. Okay, cool. So that's a great way to add in transitions and just different parts that you're using on your video. This is what you would do. I'm going to give you a bit of a pro tip here. I'm going to increase this quite a bit. If you really need to narrow in, let's say you're still talking and you want to get rid of some stuff. If you double click this center image or just like whatever this icon is, just double click right there and you will see exactly where it's cutting off in the video here. It's taking and decreasing the volume here. And then you have it increasing the audio here. And this is why you kind of have like that hourglass symbol of it, because it's going from one is exiting, another's entering. So if I needed to adjust just this top part, like let's say you're still getting too much of the audio from this bit here, I can literally just drag that over and start to adjust. And then I'll know exactly where audio is getting cut out just to make sure it doesn't overlap too much. Or if I really need to adjust or make fine-tune cuts and things like that, double click here. Before, when you open eCount, you want to go to the. So that's a nice transition. It's nice and quick. And so I would go through the video, make various different ones for that. I want to go and move away from transitions here because you'll continue this throughout the edit progressively as you're going through. And let's start to go through and add in some B-roll and some music to make this video really start to shine. When I'm going through a video and I want to add in B-roll, you can do a couple things, which is gather all the B-roll up front, or you're in the edit and you realize you need some. So you can do a couple versions, which is third party, where you're using something like story blocks, and that's like maybe some generic stuff that you didn't have to record. You can go there and type in search and you find whatever you want. Or you can go into your native or natural B-roll, as I like to call it, the native B-roll that you're recording yourself, which could be a specific clip. And we already have those here where I'm recording the SSD video clips that I want to use. And we already have that natural and native B-roll. So we brought that in because those 4 files are what we actually need for this video. That's native footage. And so if I want only, let's say, this part here first of me just holding it, what I can do, what's really cool, once I select this file, I can just hit the I for the in part and then the O for the out part, and only have selected this part of the video. And I can drag this down to a specific section that I need on the timeline. Now, a couple things that you want to notice when you're going into your B-roll is that if you notice that it has a line right here, that's an audio line. And what most beginner editors or creators, most beginner creators are making a mistake of is leaving that all the way up. Even though you're not seeing any audio levels like you're seeing down here of me actively speaking, there's still native background noise, or oftentimes when I'm recording B-roll clips, I'm also recording music or I'm listening to a podcast. That kind of audio, or even like just outdoor noise, you don't need that stuff feeding into the edit, making stuff a mess. And so what you want to do here is go ahead and drag that down all the way down to 0. That way you're not having to worry about the audio. Some people, you can go through, detach the audio and delete it. I think that's a bit overkill. I just want to pull that audio all the way down so I can get rid of it. And so as I'm going through and I'm listening to the clip here, I want to make sure that I'm using the say, show, and spell method. So as I'm progressing through the video, as I'm saying something, even though it's already on the screen, I want to give a different perspective, a close-up experience of what it is that I'm talking about. So if I'm saying something, I'm going to show it to you, and then it may be spelling of the item, either on the item. This one says Samsung T5 SSD. I don't need to add a lower third. You can if you want, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to show it to you. And if we need to add the spelling, we can, or if we want to put that lower third in there, a description, then we can do that also. So let's listen in and see where's the optimal place to position this B-roll. Now, I highly recommend the Samsung SSD. They're T5s or even T7. Okay, so I actually kind of hit that on the money. SSD, they're T5s or even T7s that they've newly released, because these SSDs. Okay, so I have another jump cut right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide that cut, jump that to 120%. And so we know, what was it, like about a negative 52 on the y-axis, maybe somewhere up a little bit more, just so it makes more sense. Yep, so that's about normal. Released, because these SSDs are. So that feels like that transition real quick. It feels harsh, and just like that, you feel that cut. I want to really have as much as possible, like invisible edits. I don't want you to feel a harsh cut there. So let me see if I can adjust this a little bit here. Newly released, because these SSDs are. So I'm gonna expand this out. I want to get really fine tuned into this specific portion. I just don't want it to feel harsh. They've newly released, because these SSD. Okay, so I'm gonna teach you all a pro editing tip here. So I'm gonna cut this right underneath the B-roll because I just want this section. I'm gonna right click, detach the audio. And this is now something, again, it's a bit more advanced. This is not a full editing thing, but I do want to give you a lot of the good tidbits and the main core elements that you'll repeat over and over throughout the edit. I'm going to extend this audio out. And this is now what's going to be looking like the letter L. And this is an L cut. If it was going the other way and the audio from over here is coming in before the video, that would be a J cut. We use a lot of J and L cuts in any of the videos, just because it feels normal. It feels more natural. You can bring in some of the content or keep that audio rolling so it just doesn't feel weird. So I'm just going to keep refining this here until I get this down. Release, because these yeah, this feels so harsh. Because these SSDs are. Sometimes I'll even like a little blip right here, bring this in for a soft transition. If you right click on it, that S curve, because these something is cutting really harsh. So I'm just going to try to same thing down here that they've newly released, because these SSDs. And that's what it was. So like the audio, just the cuts, it just, that those audio artifacts, it sounds really harsh. Okay, let's listen to it all together. Samsung SSD, they're T5s or even T7s that they've newly released, because these SSDs or solid state drives don't have the spinning disk. Okay, we can add another B-roll here. But if I'm going through and I'm just honestly doing a bunch of the rough cuts, and I notice at that particular point, I want to add a B-roll clip, what I'll do is set reminders for myself. And if you hit the letter M on your keyboard, it pulls up a nice little marker there. It's still going to be the color blue. If I double click the letter M, then it'll click up this pop up here. And then I can put in like B-roll is what I'll type in, dash, and you can say add clip of, but I think that's a little bit redundant. So I'll just say side of Samsung T5 SSD. And then let's find another portion here real quick. Just a couple variations of this. I'll use the second one when it is B-roll, so that when it's completed, it turns green instead of red. But if it's red, I know I need to add that, and I'll show you how that comes into play in just a second. But let's go and zoom this out, and we'll find another B-roll clip here. Gigabytes. And these are great. It's great to have some of these just. Okay, so I already know I probably want to add some B-roll SSD website prices. Okay, so I'm going to add that there. So now I have two different sections that need B-roll there, and then we can even add a third one here. We'll say B-roll, let's see, image of Samsung there. So now we have these three markers here that are specific. I like to use the checkable versions when I'm using the edit, so I know to go back and add it. That way I'm not stopping to add B-roll constantly, but I'm also not losing the ideas that maybe I'm having as I'm going through making rough cuts, adding transitions, and stuff like that. Now, if you have all the B-roll, you can just go ahead and drag and drop all that stuff in, especially if you have it in advance. But I'll usually just place the marker for there. And the reason why is because when we go over here to the index button, This is an actual button. It's not just a word. And you click on this, you'll have clips, you'll have tags, and then you'll have roles. If you just go to the tag section and make sure you have all selected here, there are a couple different variations of a marker or a tag. I just like to click on all. And that way, let's go to, on the timeline, the beginning of the video. So now we've gone through, we've done all the rough cuts, and we got all these different clips here. But if I click on this one, it takes me directly to where that needs to be. I see that I have the B-roll clip. I can just click on that box there. It turns green and I know that I'm good. And I even have a little check mark there as well in the tags area to know that that's taken care of. And then I can go here and say, okay, B-roll is missing from there. Go back up here, select my in and out, my I, and then let's say my O. That may be a good portion. Drag this down here and then bring my audio levels down, and then let's test it. Solid state drives don't have the spinning disc that we used to see when we're okay, and then I can shave that off right there. And so now the B-roll has been added and I can check that off, hit the index to make that disappear and move on in that way. So when you need to add in B-roll, I like to use the markers just to kind of give me reminders of what I have an imagination or an idea about, just to make things so much easier as I'm going through the editing process. So once you've gone in and you've made your adjustments, doing your rough cut, you've initially cut out anything that you need to, mark your different places for B-roll, maybe went ahead and added in some transitions and things that you want to use. The main thing now that I want to go through after I've pretty much kind of edited that video through is I'll start to add in the music, because I want to make sure that it gets a vibe, like it has the right music to match the energy and what I want that specific video to do. So I'm going to go over to one of my favorite places to find some music, which is Upbeat. So one of the things that I love about Upbeat is the fact that they are constantly adding new music. You also have spaces for sound effects. One of the things that I will do as a pro tip here, just to kind of save time, is when I'm working on other things, I will listen to music and start creating playlists. So I have stuff for new videos, when I'm writing my book, the writing vibes and things that just kind of help keep me focused, as well as other things. But overall, what I like to do is go into the brand new, trending, or hot on premium, stuff like that. And I really like it because you can get a yearly plan for what it costs for maybe 1 or 2 months on some of these other plans for, you know, different music accounts. So it's very, very cost effective. So let's check out this B-roll essentials that they have here as a playlist. And what I'll do when I'm listening and I'm looking for music is I won't start everything at the beginning. It takes too long to start going through tracks. I'll just kind of start where I see that the bars are much larger, so that I know I'm past the intro and all that stuff, because most songs start slow and I usually don't ever add that in editing either. Use that one a lot. Like that one. Nope. Some of these songs are fine, it's just not the vibe I'm looking for. It's pretty okay. Nope. And I'll know if it's... Yeah, no. I'll know if the song is kind of right for what I'm thinking, if the beat is too slow, or if the music is just too busy. Because I don't want a song that's going to compete with my voice. I want something that's really going to be nice so that it's not super distracting in the background. We use that one quite a bit. I like this one. Yeah, I like this one a lot. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is the one. So I've already added this one somewhere in my favorites into a playlist, but if you want, hit the plus symbol, add it to a playlist and all that good stuff. So let's say we add this to 2022 vibes, add the playlist, that way it's saved. And I also like to heart it so that I have that saved in my favorites as well, because that's a really nice song. So once you click download, you can go through and save this. You can create a folder for any of your assets, B-roll, stuff like that. I'm going to save this one to a May 4th folder. I've already actually downloaded this video so that I have this ready to go for this specific edit. Something else I want to grab is sound effects, because I added a transition on a B-roll clip. So I'm thinking something like a glitch sound effects. Now, I don't want to go through all this stuff. I kind of just want to go for what I think. is going to be. I'm just like, again, what my imagination is for this one, and click on sound effects here. And it's like, I'll know it when I hear it. Nope, too digital. Nah, it's not it. So I'm going to try a different word like error. See what comes up for sound effects. Nope. That's pretty okay. That could work. So let's try this one. Save that one to the folder, and I'm going to try this one also just to see once it's actually in editing which one would work, and save that one. So I've dragged and dropped in the 2 different sound effects that I want to use potentially here over this transition. I thought it'd be cool just to add a little bit of a glitch effect for when you get the pop-up message versus a traditional kind of a pop noise. It just depends on what you want. And what I'll do is hit the V on my keyboard, just the V, don't have to press command or anything. And I want to test and try which one kind of sounds better. I'm going to decrease the volume because it just needs to be subtle. It doesn't need to be harsh. Some people leave their sound effects way too loud. You need to start adjusting the audio for that. There's a lot of beginner mistakes doing that. Your folder. Okay, so that sounds like a mess up in the audio file. Your folder. Yeah, so that one's not going to work. Down here, because that one just makes the audio sound like it's something wrong with it versus an actual effect. Your folder has. Okay, maybe increase that one a little bit. Your folder has been full. That's pretty subtle. It's pretty good. See here? Your folder has been. Yep. So get rid of this other one. So that way I know that this audio file works good. Your folder has been. And just because it is a little bit high pitch, just because it's a little high pitched, I'm going to bring this down. Your folder has been full. Yeah, I don't want it to be too loud. And we're at a -12. If we put this audio, if we go select the file, and then you can adjust the volume also still up here as well. We hit 0. If we leave this as loud as it was, your folder has been full. That's really jarring to someone that's maybe in their car listening to the video, or somebody that especially has headphones on. And then some people have different hearing issues. And this is already kind of like a high pitched noise. I really don't want this to be annoying. I just kind of want it to be slightly tasteful, just something you see, you hear it, but you instantly forget about it versus like, whoa, 'cause sometimes that, again, sound effects too loud just sucks. Your folder has been full. Okay. If you want to keep, and you sometimes can add one to transition it out or whatever. I don't want to deal with that. So let's zoom back out here, and that's shift and, excuse me, not shift, but that's command and the negative sign or minus sign. So now I want to bring in our music piece that we have. And again, if you're just doing a very simple edit, you can drag and drop your music in. So let's bring this in underneath. And again, naturally, just the way the video would play, it would be way too loud. Just for, you know, brace yourself, because it does get a little loud here. It sucks, especially if. And so most people leave their audio too loud, much too loud. You absolutely do not want to be doing that. You will annoy the crap out of your audience. But I will leave it a little bit loud just for a second, because I want to find the part of the song that I do want to use. I'm not using all of this, it gradually starting and the song starting. That's lame to me. I'm just going to go here. How to actually turn your video into a. Okay, I want to find a piece of the song that sounds like it's a good starting point versus it's in the middle of the song, kind of, if that makes sense. How to actually turn your video in. Okay. Okay, I think right there. Okay, and let's bring this down to size. I really don't want this to compete with my voice. And so what I'll do is, it's my personal preference, I'll add a bass boost on here on depending on the kind of song, just because I really want it to rock. And then I will bring this all the way over here to the beginning. Have you ever been mid live stream and you get this pop-up message that says something like, okay, let me just increasing the volume, and I'm just trying to listen. If you press and hold command at the same time as you're dragging your mouse, you can gradually bring that music in. And so increase the volume, or versus just, if you just grab the line, it's going to jump like crazy. So I just want to gradually bring that music to where I think it's at. This little bubble here again, if I slide this over, there's just a slight right click S curve on there just to progressively fade it in. If you wanted to really drag the fade in, you can have all of it where you fading it in. I don't want to do that. I just usually use a little bit so it's not noticeable, but at the same time, it makes a difference when you're doing the minor things that a refined editor does. Have you ever been mid live stream and you get this pop-up message that says something like okay, I'm hearing something else in the music that I want, but I'm talking and I can't quite hear it, but I almost have it there. So what I'm gonna do is hit V on my video clip so that it's muted, because I just want to hear the music. Okay, so I think about here is a better place to start the song. Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, let's make sure the music is where it needs to be. Have you ever been mid live stream and you get this pop-up message that says something like your folder has been full if you want to keep recording, especially when you're using something like Ecamm Live? And this sucks, especially if you want to do, like I'm going to be showing you later on in the video, how to actually turn. It's almost like slightly too loud. I'm bring it down just a smidge more because it is a pretty busy track. But I really, really like this song. So let's just see here if the vibe is right, then cool. Have you ever been mid live stream and you get this pop-up message that says something like your folder has been full if you want to keep recording, especially when you're using something like Ecamm Live? And this sucks, especially if you want to do, like I'm going to be showing you later on in the video, how to actually turn your video into a recorded video for. Okay, that is the right song for the intro of this video. It sounds really good. It's got the right energy. It's got the right vibe, all of those different things. So now that we have the elements of the editing from our transitions to the music and bringing things in, the timing and pacing, all of those things help, those elements help to get the pacing really, really good. What I'm going to go ahead and do now is take all of those elements, combine them, go ahead and edit this video that's about 10 minutes or so. And don't think just because your video is 10 minutes, it's only going to take you 20 minutes to edit. You can start to speed through, but you do want to give yourself time because you're editing your video in layers. You have to do the rough cut to get rid of stuff. You need to go through the audio and make sure the volumes and things are where they're needing to be. Make sure your B-roll and stuff is in there. And then you want to check for pacing. Does it feel rushed? Does it feel too slow and you're leaving in fluff that could be cut out? And so you're refining and reviewing your content and not being too critical, but you're also not being too lenient. You want to find a good sweet spot with your content when you're going through it. So I'm actually going to go through and edit the video down to the regular stuff using all the same things that I taught you, probably adding in a few things that we usually do for our specific brand assets, which may be a bit more advanced, but you have already just in this shortcut version tutorial of Final Cut Pro, you have a lot of refined tools that most beginners won't know, but because you're watching this video, you will know, and your videos will be much better just starting out. So I'm gonna go through, edit this video, and then we will go through and see what we have. So here we are with the finished video edit, and you can see all of the different B-roll elements and things added in here. Now, we have condensed this down quite a bit. I like to do what I call harsh editing, which is really going through with a fine-tooth comb and cutting out a bunch of stuff and fluff. Not that some pieces weren't good pieces of content, but it literally was something that the video can do without. The portions that I did share was sufficient enough to get the point home and make sure everything is still being clear without being confusing, and that the parts that are clear aren't being muddied just with adding on, extended examples. But I do like to give myself options when I'm recording, so I will have quite a bit extra. So we have this final video file down to 5 minutes, 11 seconds, and 2 milliseconds there going on. But this is how this initial video will play. We're not going to go through the whole thing. And then there was a portion that I did forget to share with you when it comes to titles, because the natural baked in stuff in Final Cut actually sucks, and so that needs to be its own dedicated portion, and I'll show you that in a bit. But I do want to show you just how this video plays just for the first 30 seconds to a minute. Have you ever been mid live stream and you get this pop-up message on Ecamm Live that says something like your folder or your computer is full and you need to clear this off and the recording has stopped? And this sucks, especially if you want to do, like I'm going to be showing you later on in the video, how to actually turn your video into a recorded video for YouTube. But we're going to be diving into that and a couple pro tips to help you along the way. Just some additional hiccups after I've been doing this for some years that'll kind of help you out. So one of the reasons you actually So already, if I pause the video right here at 26 seconds, we are moving into core content. And so we have a good dedicated intro for this video that gives enough examples, have all of the elements that we talked about in the video planning guide. All of that stuff is there. And so now at 26 seconds, we are moving on into core content. So we're going to wrap up these next 30 seconds and see how this plays. And then I'll show you how to add a title screen to another portion here that I left and omitted, so we can go into that. To get this kind of message is because you probably are saving all of your Ecamm recorded videos to your actual computer. It doesn't help if you're recording in 1080p, 2K, or even 4K, and those file sizes are steadily increasing and getting larger. So I would encourage you, stop saving this to your computer. Instead, you want to start using something like an external drive. There's a couple different options that you can choose from, and it really makes a difference on which one you use. Now, I highly recommend the Samsung SSD, their T5s or even T7s that they've newly released, because these SSDs are solid state. Okay, so I did hear a couple audio artifacts, but it's just probably from the rendering and other stuff that's open on the computer. But more or less, as long as your video doesn't export with those audio stutters or whatever, I know that's just a factor of all of the stuff I have going on the computer and 32,000 internet tabs being open at the same time, but that's neither here nor there. So we're going to move up to the front portion of this video. All of the B-roll and stuff has been added in addition to other things that I add to our videos when we're going through. But there is one part that I do want to add a title to. So where you find your titles is up here where you see this T symbol, and you'll see titles and generators. This may be condensed down. You just need to hit the triangle to expand that out. And so you'll see 3D and a bunch of stuff that's in there that's kind of lame. So like stuff like this, and you'll see these on real old school YouTube videos. Get the stuff like that. Sorry, but that's lame. I like to go find stuff that's a bit more customized. And so you can go and download and purchase different ones. Different creators makes things. If you're making something and you want something to come on the screen, you can change the colors, completely customizable. You also have other stuff where you can add in fun elements and stuff like that in your videos. And these assets, or what's known as like plugins, tend to make things a whole lot better. So when it comes to titles, I like to do something that's just very simple. Now, if you hit the, let's go here and just select down here, you hit Control T, this will open up a basic title thing here. And so what I'm going to do is condense this down to just the part that I need. I don't need any effects or anything like that, but if you do want to use your brand fonts and things like that, whatever's already installed on your computer is going to work in Final Cut. You'll already see those here. I do save mine occasionally for different projects that I'm working on and all kinds of stuff, but you can go through and select your font and then find whichever one that you want or that you like. But I will save mine, so I'm going to go here and just look for this here, and this is the one that I use. So I'm going to change this to this and then I'm just going to increase the size here in the inspector. Actually, no, I'll make this all caps, and we're going to move this. One reason why I like Final Cut Pro 10 over stuff like Adobe or DaVinci or other stuff, and sometimes they have very comparable features, but I personally just like the drag and drop, and I see this, literally the word this, and I want to move it, then I can, and it's just a drag and drop. I don't have to move it across the X and Y axis. But what I want to do now, you see how it's white and it's hard to see. I want to go down here and change to where it says face, and I'm going to expand that out to show, and then I'm going to select just one of my brand fonts. I'll save commonly used colors here. So my brand font and my brand color. And so I'm just going to change this to literally this sucks. I'm going to expand this out by hitting the Command and plus symbol. And this sucks. Okay. And this. Okay. So what I now want to do is I'm going to put a marker here so I know the place of where I want this to come in at. Something you can do across your editing, whether it's a video file, it's a text or something like that. Once you, like, I've added the font, I've added the size, and then maybe I want to keep using this throughout the video. I don't want to have to keep worrying about re-adding all that stuff, because that's a time suck. So what you can do is hold down Option and drag forward. Now just make sure that you literally get the double, because this will copy and everything for you. So I'm the same shortcuts and all that stuff for cutting works. So I want this to stay on screen, and I want the sucks to be underneath to accentuate what I'm saying here. Make sure that's all caps. Alrighty, now this is where using the X and the Y axis is important to me, because if I drag and drop with my hand and the mouse, it'll move all over the place, and I may not, be able to get it quite right or something like that, and it'll just be a smidge off. Instead, I'll just bring this down here, and then that's perfect. So I know it stays centered and in alignment, and then I'll decrease that there, probably bring it back up just a little bit. And this is under the position if you're looking for that. So we have that. And so now I just want to get the timing for this. So it says this sucks on screen, and then I'm going to cut the tail off of it so it's not on screen longer than it needs to be. And this sucks, especially if... Okay, let me go here. And this sucks. All right. When I say especially, that's sufficient. Let's get rid of... Okay. Select all. And then I want to hit my end bracket and to get rid of that. And just trying to get the timer right. I know my computer is wheezing from all the things that I'm doing. And this sucks, especially if you want... So that's great. So that's how, if you want to add titles, one way that you can do it, if you go into the title generator, the titles and generator, then at that point you can drag and drop stuff on and it'll work the same way. But basic titles like this, I just like to keep it simple and use stuff that's contrasting. So this is not the darker orange, it's just like a yellowish hue light that's now in the background of the video. So I don't want to use white text or maybe yellow text. It's harder to see, so I needed a darker contrasty color. So that works. And this sucks, especially if you want to do like... Yep, so that's literally the only text that I want to do. But this is a very harshly edited as far as time frame, where I'm completely condensing this down, cutting all the fluff out. So we went from a 15-minute or so raw file down to 10 minutes, and then down to 9 minutes, and then we're down to 5 minutes, roughly right at the 5 minute mark for this specific video. I've already gone through this and watched it a couple times just to make sure if I wanted to make any changes, I could in this particular video edit. Before you take your time and you're going through this and you're getting ready to export it, really make sure that the audio is everything of what you need it to be. You're not having any mistakes or typos, because it really sucks to, and especially you need to watch this once you export it, because before you upload, if you're just messing up. If you wait until you publish it to YouTube and then you're going to watch it there, you're wasting your time, because you'll have a typo and it'll drive you nuts or something is off. So once you export this video, make sure you watch it. So what we'll do is come up here to this box and this forward facing arrow, and you do want to select export video file here. Now, if you don't see the options here, if you click on add destination, you will be able to add those. I prefer just to keep it really, really simple with my options. So I'm gonna come here and click on export file. Now, for this particular video, I will go ahead and change this because I've done this in 1080p this whole time, but we don't export in 1080p any longer in our company. We do 4K video files, unless we just want to, but we do 4K. So what I'm going to do is do that. Couple changes here in the settings area where it says action, which means when this video is done, what do I want Final Cut Pro to do? I just want it, or where do I want it to go? I just want it to save the video. I don't want to open the QuickTime player to watch it. I don't want to add it to any of that stuff. I just save the video. That's it. Info is going to be what you want to call this video, any additional details, tags and the like. Rows and stuff is not significant. But if you do want to change the video format, you can't do it here. You need to go back to the original place that I said. I like to just use computer and then 1920 by 1080p, H.264, because all that makes sense for the video file.
So that way the file size is smaller. If you pick sometimes some of this other stuff like video and audio, now that becomes a 4.84 gig. I'm not about that out here in these streets, so it's going to take too much. Some people are really snobs with video. I'm not that big of a snob when it comes to that kind of stuff, because again, you're usually, once I switch this to 4K, it'll be a bigger file. So I don't need excess, like a 12 gigabyte file for we're not doing 6 and 8K yet. So once you select next on here, it'll give you the option to decide where you want this to go. And you can again put this back on the SSD drive, so you're not having to worry about stuff. So I'm gonna go here, create a new folder, which I'm gonna call edited. So I know any of my edited versions or different pieces of the video that we have, I'm gonna put that there so it's not chunked into everything else. And then I'll click on save, and then at that point it'll start to export. So I'm gonna export the video out, and then we'll come back.
So we've gone through the planning, we've gone through the recording, and now we are past the editing phase. So the last step is honestly going to start publishing that content. Don't freak out if you've made mistakes, and don't freak out if it didn't go exactly the way that you wanted. One of the things that happened in recording the video was that I recorded it way too long. Had so many takes, and it honestly was a bit frustrating to get through. But here's the thing, you will get through it. And the more that you do the process, the more efficient that you will become at the process. Now, this is all kind of like behind the scenes, if you will, to get the video ready to go. If you want to take a look at the video that we went through in this particular course, it's already published on YouTube. If you want to watch how we went through that process and what the finished product actually looks like.